Alright, so this video is for the crash course converting fractions to decimal to percent. And we're just going through the workbook and working the different examples. And we left off at example 13. So let's look at example 13, A, B, and C. 0.12. 12 is the part, and it is in the hundredths place. So the answer would be 12%. Remember in class I give three different ways of figuring this out. The first way is multiply. So way number one is to multiply by 100 to change a decimal into, sorry, I have the hiccups, into a percent. So to do this one, I would put 0.1 to multiply it by 100. That's going to be 0, 0, 0. I'm going to need more room. Let me do it out here. Times 100. Okay, I'm going to go 0, 0, 2. 0, 0, 1, and 0, 0, 0, 0. Fill in, add going down. I have two decimal places. It's 12%, right? Okay, now option number two is basically the same thing, but you know that multiplying by 100 is just moving that decimal point two places. So option number two, so just move it two places to the right. So you just move two places to the right. We didn't do anything wrong. We get the same answer as we do with option number one, still 12%. But this is just a new way of doing it. It's really doing the same thing, but it's just a different view of it, okay? Same thing with our option number three. This isn't a different way of doing it. It's actually the same way. We're going by 100 because 100 is the place value, the hundredths place. But we're just looking at it from a different point of view. So in option number three, we say I go to the hundredths place value and I take the number to there, to the hundredths place value. And I say it's 12%. I just pick up that number because that would be what a percent is out of. A percent is out of 100%. Let's look at B. 0.06. This decimal does not have a hundredths place. The 6 is in the tenths place. To change the decimal so that we have a hundred place, we need to add a 0 and make it 0.60. Now we can see the percent is 60%. So again, I can do this in my different options. I could multiply it. Okay, 0, 0, 6, one decimal place, so the answer is 60%. I could move the decimal two places, 1, 2, and add a 0 in my dead spot, or I can say there's a 6 in the tenths place, there's nothing in my hundredths place, which means if there's nothing, 0 is the numeric value for nothing. So I put a 0 there, and my answer is 60%. Just matters on how your brain sees it. Let's do letter C. 0.236, this decimal ends up in the thousandths place. So now we have a little bit of different thing, but we can still multiply it by 100 since that's the place value for percents. Zero, 0, 6, 0, my 6 kind of looks like my 0. 0, 0, 3, 0, 0, 2. Add going down. And I need three place values. And it's 23.6%. All right, another way I could do it is just move that decimal point two places to the right. And the answer is 23.6%. Or I can say, let me go to my hundredths place. My hundredths place is right here, so this is my percent value, and this has to be less than 1%. So it will have a decimal point in front of it. Just matters on what makes sense to you. They're all actually doing the same thing. They're moving towards the place value of 100, okay? 1.02. So this is over 1 whole percent because look, I have a whole number. But let's multiply it and see what happens this time. So 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 0, and 0, 0, 1. put in 2 place values, and I get 110%. All right, I also could have moved that decimal place 2 places to the right and gotten 110%. I also could have said what is in the hundredths place, and that is the 2. The 2 is in the hundredths place, so I take everything in front and make it the percent. Everything behind would be behind a decimal. All right. Now in example 4, you see that they're all done for you, so I'm not going to do them. They're actually the ones we just did. I'm actually going to skip down to 15. All right, so if I'm doing this, I'm going to do this all 3 ways. If I'm doing this by multiplying by 100, it would go 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Might look different if you flip-flop these, which is totally okay because of my associative and commutative properties of multiplication. And I have 2 decimal places. This one's 154%. I also could have done this by moving that decimal place 2 places to the right, putting it behind the 4 and made it 150%. Or I could have said a percent is out of the hundredths place, take everything in front of it, 154%. All right, let's do another one. Let's change 0.12 to a percent. All right, so I could do this again by multiplication. I'm going to do my multiplication over here because I'm running out of room in my margin. 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, add going down. 2 decimal places, I get 12%. Could also move that decimal place 2 places, and that would make it 12%. The last way I can do it is say that is in the hundredths place, take everything in front of it, 12%. All right, now I'm going to do these a different way each one. I'm just going to go down through just because I don't want this video to be an hour long for you. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the multiplication method on this one. 0, 0, 0, underneath this 0, 0, 0, 0, underneath this 1, 7, 1, 7. You see how it moves it 2 places? Because look at all these zeros. It's going to move our answer 2 places. That's exactly what we're doing when we move it 2 places to the right when we do that method. I need 3 place values, and the answer turns out to be 71.7%. And if I had moved the decimal 2 places, would have gotten it. Because of this block of zeros, this multiplying by 100 does. All right, for this one, I'm just going to move it 2 places to the left, to the right, sorry. 1, 2, okay, and it's 143%. This one, I'm just going to look at the hundredths place. I'm going to take everything in front as my percent value, put a decimal, write everything after behind the decimal. All right, this last one, I'm going to go ahead and do it the multiplication method and the moving 2 places. Because those are actually the 2 that I mostly have. And I want to show this connection again. So 0, 0, 0, over underneath this, 0, 0, 0, 9, 4, 5. Fill in my zeros. Look at what multiplying by 100 does. It gives me 2 rows of zeros, or 2 columns of zeros in my answer because it's moving it 2 places to the right, just like moving it 2 places to the right would have done. And we get 54.9%. Okay, let's go ahead and do a percent back to a decimal. I'm going to leave and then we'll do a percent to a fraction depending on how much time we've been recording. Right now we've been recording for 9 minutes, so we probably aren't going to get to it. All right, so if moving from a percent to from a decimal to a percent, so when I usually do this, I write this up on the board. This is the way I move. I move from a fraction to a decimal and a decimal to percent. Now I can also go backwards. And the reason I move it this way is because from a decimal to a percent, you move 2 places to the right, just like the arrow is going. And when you go back to a decimal, you have to do the opposite, 2 to the left. I go 2 to the left. All right, so in this one, what I would do is write my decimal at the end of the number, move it back 2 places, and it would be 0.29. Now this is the same thing as dividing by 100. So this one we multiplied by 100. When we go back the other way, we have to do the opposite, and we have to divide by 100. So if I was dividing by 100, the 29 would go inside the divisor, and the 100 would go on the outside. 100 can't go into 29, so I write a decimal, and now I'm free to put as many zeros as I want. 100 goes into 290 2 times. All right, I can drop down another 0. 100 goes into 900 9 times, and again I get 0.29. All right, so I can move it 2 places to the left and make it 0.91, or I can divide it. 100 can't go into 91, so I put a decimal and a 0. 100 can go into 110 9 times, okay, and that's 900. Drop down my 10, drop down another 0. Look how it's pushing it 2 places. It's pushing it 2 places to the left with these zeros here, okay. 100 can go in 101 time. All right, let's do this one. This one's clearly more than one full 100%. So the first thing I could do is put my decimal point, move it 2 places, and I get 1.48 as my answer. Okay, and of course the second way I can do this is divide by 100. So let's see what happens. I should get the same answer, correct? So, and I should get a whole number. We know it should be a whole number because this is more than one full 100%. It's 148%. Remember, this can't happen in sports. You can't give 148% of yourself, but you can in markups and stuff like that. We usually talk about that in class. All right, 100 into 148 can go 1 time. 100 cannot, out of digits, so I got to put that decimal and a 0. Drop down my 0. 100 can go into 480 4 times with a remainder of 80. Drop down another 0. 100 can go into 800 8 times, and my answer is 1.48. So both ways will give you the answer. So I'm going to do it for the sake of time. I'm going to just keep flipping back and forth, but I'm not going to keep doing it both ways. 77%, I can move that decimal 2 places to the left, and that gives me 0.77. In this one, I'm going to divide. It's out of 100, right? So I'm going to put 178 on the inside of the divisor and 100 on the outside. That can go into this number 1 time with a remainder of 78. I ran out of digits, so I need to start working on numbers smaller than 1. So I'm going to put a decimal point and add a 0. That is 7. If you're having trouble with this dividing of decimals, you can always take my class dividing decimals, and that would help a great deal. And the answer comes out to 1.78. All right, in this one, I'm just going to move that decimal place 2 places. I'm going to get 0.261. All right, for this one, I'm going to go ahead and divide it. This one has a decimal in it, so I just need to put my decimal point in. 100 can't go into 12. 100 can go into 129, and it can do that 1 time. 100 can go into 290 2 times. Drop down another 0, and it can go in 9 times. All right. And this one's a little bit tricky. Okay, I still put it here, but when I move it, I have a dead spot because I gotta move it 2 places. So this is actually a very little percent. 3% is very little. It's 0.30%. I mean, as a decimal. All right, but we can also do this through division. So let's do that on this one. 7 goes on the inside, 100 on the outside. Got to put that decimal spot and a 0. 100 still can't go into 70, so I'm going to put a 0 there. Add another 0 to my number. 100 can go into 700, so my answer would be 0.07. Same thing with 4%. We're going to move that decimal 2 places, 1, 2, fill in a 0 in the dead spot, and a 0.04 as a decimal. Changing a percent to the fraction, I think we have enough time. Yeah, it's only going to take me a minute. Same thing we do with decimals. We take the numeric value and we put it over the place value. But there's only one place value in percents, and that's 100. I could reduce this by 5 on the top and the bottom, which would give me 11 over 20. But it's not necessary. Again, I just take my numeric value, put it over 100. Now in this one, if I put my numeric value over 100, I have an improper fraction. And I can turn that into a mixed number. 100 goes into 174. One time with 74 over 100 left over. I can also reduce that if I wanted to by, let's try just doing 2's first. And that would be the correct way of doing it, because 37 is prime. Again, I could put it like this, or I can say to myself, look, I have over a full 100%. So I'm going to put that 1 as my whole number, 78 over 100. And I can reduce that down twice, actually. Down to 1 and 17 over 25. Now this one, even though it's just one digit, it's still over 100, and that is not reducible. Again, even if it's one digit, it's just over 100. All right, so that is the end of this video. At the beginning of next video, I will tackle example 37 to 40. It's just a recap of how we change a decimal percent to a fraction, in a different view. Okay, we're going to look at it from a different view. And then I'm going to do fractions. All right, and as you can see, we have tons of examples for that. So that will be the last video of this class. And then I will do the chart. That will be a follow-up video. And I will hopefully see you guys in some more OutSchool classes.